What did you think?
Well, I really did enjoy quite a lot of it, and I thought it really was well produced. It really built on itself really quite well, and it had a lot of good themes to it. Had a good sound to it. It did everything it needed to do as far as a prog album, especially a prog album that split down the middle like that with 20 minutes on one side, 20 minutes on the other. Something as ambitious as that. It passed all the prog scrutiny that it could possibly have, and it had its own Jethro Tull-ness to it. I think, all that medievalism to it, and it did this really cool thing where it seemed like it started out a certain way, and then it went forward into like this sort of movement, and then the second part sort of unwinded backwards back to it. I would say that I liked the first side, like the whole thing. The first side worked for me. I think the second side at the beginning was a bit slow for me. It kind of was going through a lot of these weird things, a lot of instrumentation, which was fine. But then the second part,
the beginning of the second side was also kind of that way.
That's what I said. The beginning of the second side.
Well, oh yeah, okay.
And then the second half of the second side, I think it started picking back up again. And then it started recalling parts from the first side, and I realized what it was doing in some ways. I really don't know what it's about, but we can discuss that some other time.
Yeah, that probably is better for another time. Well, then let me ask you this then. So, you say it meets all these prog criteria in terms of a kind of 20-minute album, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, how about Aqualung then?
Aqualung, I've only listened to that fully once.
Well, you've listened to only this fully once.
Yeah, but I mean, at least the last time I listened to it was probably December.
True.
I would say Aqualung does meet those requirements to some extent. However, it's not nearly all the way there. Aqualung to me feels like Jethro Tull bringing prog elements into his sort of style, while this one was a full-on commitment to progressive rock. I feel like Aqualung was such a successful thing that he said, "All right, I'm going to double down and just do this prog thing and see how funny it is." I think he was toying with it a little bit. I feel like this was kind of in some ways it was a bit of a mockery of prog rock, but he still used progressive elements to do it really well. And I think it technically it would just worked really well. Like everything worked very. I mean, I'm not saying it's the greatest prog suite I've ever heard,
of course,
but it's competent. It's on par with that sort of stuff. I mean, of course, I'm always gonna like Supper's Ready more and Tarkus and all that, but I think it's definitely I would allow it to sit at the table of prog bands. Now, I don't know. Maybe I could listen to Aqualung more, but I would say that this album is definitely worthy of being progressive, and it's definitely worthy of being a good album in general, whether progressive or not. Anyway. So. What?
Well, I don't know. When it comes down to it, this is the second time I've listened to it, right?
Yeah.
But let's just say the first time I listened to it, I was charmed by a few things they did here and there. And I'll agree with you that it's not bad. It's certainly confident. It's certainly confident as a prog album. That's undeniable. I mean, that Japanese prog group we were listening to, that mono.
What the hell was that?
You repeat the same chords for 17 minutes.
That's progressive rock now. That's the opposite of progressive rock.
This is, of course, a million miles away from that. I'll admit that. I'll take this any day.
So you're comparing it to that?
No, I'm just saying it's not that bad. I want to just preface that it's not, perhaps a lesser prog thing. But at the same time, I can't really... I don't know. There are some limits to my capacities to enjoy it. I think that although it does have some variation in there, and there's some changes. Well, of course, you have to make 20-minute song on each side. Of course, there's going to be changes, but...
Well, if it's not a Japanese band.
Yes, but I mean, on this one,
Yeah.
There are interesting things going on, but I don't think, in light of their other discography, that it really meets up to what they've been doing. I was listening to Benefit yesterday, and that's the album before Aqualung, and that one, I like that one more than Thick as a Brick. I don't know if it's just because I
couldn't
just
believe
listened
it when you
to
told me that.
just to listen to it a few times. I mean, this is only the second time I've listened to Thick as a Brick. I'm gonna listen to Benefit once, but I just think that this Anderson fellow he's the leading force of the band, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about his direction, about his point, about what he wants to say.
Yeah.
But I think a 20-minute, well, it's not always true, but the kind of premise that I get with prog songs that are wanting to be really long like that is that they're going to do all this really cool musical stuff in there.
You expect
And
Supper's Ready every time?
Well, no, but
I'm not saying that's
even,
bad.
Even Tarkus, I feel,
yeah,
went
Tarkus,
through
yeah.
more.
You think that there wasn't enough variation in this song?
Well, maybe not variation in itself, but I suppose so. Maybe textural diversity, because it went through its changes, but it was always kind of level.
It was very level.
It
didn't have the same sharp, sudden tone shifts that something like Supper's Ready had. It didn't even have that same kind of humorous interlude like Tarkus had. It always stayed either on the grass or kind of just barely floating above the grass. You're right about that.
And as for repetition, even, I mean, I think the problem with Thick as a Brick is that it's very easy to get lost in it, I think. And even listening to it a second time, I couldn't remember. Maybe it's just how I don't have a good memory. I don't know. But
it takes a while to...
I'm sure, let's just say, I just think you are always going to enjoy this album more than I am. But there's a certain degree of repetition of recalling previous themes. You know, it goes back to the Wagner age and like further than that, even back to way past classical times. Even you repeat things, you do English rounds. The repetition is there to remind you. You do repetition and variation, and I feel like Genesis did that very well.
Yeah, but
even ELP did it decently at times, although it kind of did get lost in the whole of course gets lost in trying to do new things. But this kind of had that problem of not, to me anyways, I didn't know where it was going for a long time. I didn't know what it was doing, and maybe it's because I couldn't hear the lyrics that well, or because I just haven't listened to it enough. But it just seems to me like it doesn't have much structure to it until it gets to the end, and then you hear the reprise of the beginning a little bit, and then it kind of ends. And overall, that's a nice symmetrical album, and overall, that's a nice structure that I can respect. But the journey along the way just doesn't do that much for me.
Would you argue that it's not necessary for it to be that long?
Well,
you could have,
not necessary. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't absorbed what Anderson's point is, I suppose. So I can't really say for sure.
I'm coming at it from someone who has not listened to Anderson's bulk work. I mean, I've only listened to Aqualung and this, and I'm afraid to listen to everything else because of this sort of progressive bias that I have to some extent. And just the idea of listening to blues rock, which is where he comes from, is not appealing to me right now.
Blues rock isn't bad.
I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. I just don't really feel in the mood to listen to that sort of thing. But I guess if you recommend it strongly enough, I will listen. And I think the 1970 album Benefits probably has a lot more sophistication to it.
I don't think it's as ordered, perhaps. I think this album is like looking at a nice
symmetrical tapestry.
Symmetrical, not a tapestry, but even one of those brutalist buildings that they have on campus with the.
Well, it is called Thick as a Brick.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's other reasons, but hey, maybe that's what it is. Maybe just you go through all this muddle and stuff, and you just get back to where you started. Maybe that's what the whole point of it is.
So your issue with it, I would accept this issue, is that it does kind of go in a circle, and that's fine because something like Supper's Ready, actually there is some completion to it, even though it does have some reprises. It definitely, the journey is worth it. But this didn't really. This was more like sort of this is what's going to happen. You're just going to go on a big journey in life, because I feel like it's kind of like a life. It is a cynical.
It's a very cynical. Well, you're always going to be stuck. Kind
right,
of thing.
And I feel like that is the message that he's trying to convey with it.
I mean, that's okay. It just, I honestly find it hard to tell. If I just knew that, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know what I'm saying.
Well,
It
isn't the most. And the thing is, I don't think Jethro Tull in general, and correct me if I'm wrong, is going to be the most musically impressive thing ever, because it's a one man show essentially. I mean, obviously he has some great players behind him. I mean, the keyboards in this album were really good actually. The drumming was competent. You know, everything was competent, but it's never going to be like blow your doors down.
Of course. I mean, the nice thing about Genesis and Yes and a lot and ELP, you know, it's like Emerson leads the show, Banks leads the show, you know.
They're all
Wakeman, you know, like.
The problem with the front man being sort of having the keys to everything is because then his lyrical vision kind of takes everything down with him. I mean, Marilyn Manson. I was thinking about Marilyn Manson when listening to this actually, like, because Manson started out not caring. I think at the end of the day, Marilyn Manson doesn't care about any genre, because he's always changed his genres a lot. In fact, that Golden Age of Grotesque album, from what I've heard, is, I mean, I have heard some songs from it, but I haven't listened to the whole thing in its entirety. It's a complete departure.
Well, not a complete departure. I did listen to that one actually. It's a very muddled album also.
But I mean, Mechanical Animals is very different. Not very different, but
it
somewhat.
Is.
The
thing is, I think through, and maybe you could apply this to a lot of, you know, big frontmen, like you're saying with the Manson things. They started out with a defined kind of.
Right.
Sound or a genre in a sense, kind of like the hard rock,
industrial
stuff. Yeah, but then when you start losing members, then you kind of just do this own muddly thing.
And I don't think that the thing about lyricists is I don't think they're as interested in. I mean, look at Peter Gabriel. I mean, Peter Gabriel, toward the end of his time with Genesis, was changing a lot of the Genesis sort of tropes and it becoming more urban and whatnot. And it's not like when he started doing his solo career, I mean, his solo career had to go through a lot of changes as well in terms of his style. He started out like really dark, and then he became a lot poppier. And I just feel like these frontmen people, they don't want to feel bound to the restrictions that musicianship can kind of bring. It's this. I want to tell my story, and you know whatever means to do it, I'll change depending on the album. And I feel like Anderson is one of these people. Ian Anderson.
That's why he's not as loyal to a genre. That's why he's not loyal to, say, the blues thing that he started off with, or even the progressive thing that.
No, he's not. He's not, and I think he grew out of it eventually.
Yeah.
I think, but it sort of became the genre that that brought him the most popularity, though. In the same way that Manson's industrial metal is what brought him the most popularity. Right. So, but even though you clearly see, I mean, look at David Bowie. I mean, David Bowie changed the style of his album every single album. I mean. I just think that I respect people that do that, but at the end of the day, consistency is. I like predictability. Genres are not.
It's not necessarily a measure of predictability. I mean, maybe Genesis didn't go through the most, and of course, there's always the kind of Banksian, like there's a certain way that Banks will play, but I mean, the thing it boils down to is more of a matter of how well they know how to bend instrumentation in the different musical capacities to their goals. And I think lyrics are just one of those things, just like a piano. They're completely on par, in my opinion. Maybe
I agree.
Lyrics can communicate certain things better than pianos can, but pianos can, you know, communicate certain things, just like guitars and drums and violins and
absolutely.
harmonicas even, you know, the list goes on. And the thing is that if you only prioritize one thing, like if you're Chris Steele and you say, I'm just going to play the mandolin, and my goal is the mandolin, and I am a great mandolin player, and he kicks ass at mandolin, you're still also, you need something else.
You're no better than like some like Chinese prodigy that's just playing the violin and then you get claps. I mean, you're not going to do anything impressive to me. I mean, obviously playing is important and all that, but it's how it all works together.
Right, and I mean, it's, for as much that Banks likes the keyboards, when he's by himself, And as great as he is, he can't do it. You need to have everything together. And the problem with these one-man band sort of things, or one leading man, is that they can often be exclusive of the other members, and they can be, everyone else can be put down a little bit.
It's totally unstable because if you have this vision, then that vision's going to morph into other things. And
I mean, I think maybe some people will get mad at me for this, but like with Anderson, I don't think he did even as well as Sting did in certain instances.
In terms of what?
I don't know. In terms of just bringing in just good.
Are you talking about with this album or his whole everything you've listened to?
Maybe in general, but well.
But
I should probably listen more before.
Why do you like? I'll just speak. Let's say because I've only listened to Aqualung, so I'll just ask you this: why do you like Aqualung more than this? And that's not a confrontational question. I just want to know. And I maybe I can predict what you're going to say.
What do you think I'm going to say?
Because it's more. It's not about the song length, It's not about. It's about how well you execute things. Like you could have like a whole album of just 1 minute leader, Well,
1 minute leaders can be nice sometimes, but that's beside the point. Song length does matter in certain instances because it's a kind of degree of completion.
I think
as much as I think the idea of long songs is really nice, and when I see it executed nicely, I can really like it. A long 20-minute song is like watching a 3-hour movie. I mean, you can do it sometimes, and it can be really, really great, but you can also do it other times and make it very droll.
Yeah, and overblown.
And sometimes then watching a 20-minute episode of some like silly little anime might be way better than in terms of how much fun you have.
I think unfortunately, one of the things I do regret about becoming a quote-unquote prog fan is that I think I've become a bit... I mean, I'm a very superficial person, I think. And even back when I was like a synth pop fan, I always like, in order to be a good synth pop band, like the synthesizer has to do this, this, and this, and every album has to be sort of balanced this way, and if there's any deviation from that, I'm going to be very uncomfortable listening to it. And unfortunately, I've kind of gotten to that way with prog, and if I don't see the 6 or 7 minute songs on there, I get very concerned. And I think that unfortunately ruins a lot of my perspectives on things, and that ruined it with Octopus for sure, because I balked when I saw the track listing for Octopus. Maybe I should just not look at the track listing before listening to the album.
Maybe you shouldn't.
But every song on that album is 4 minutes. Every single song. Not even, that's not even one of them's 3 minutes, but every song is 4 minutes. I mean, I guess that's balanced, but it's like and I've gotten to this thing like, well, if a song isn't at least 6 minutes long, then what's the point of even listening to it? Because it's either a pop song, and if it's not a good pop song, then what's the point of not listening to it?
That's not true. That's a morphological thing. It's like saying, well, everything that has wings on it has to be a bird, and if you see a mammal that happens to be flying around, then it just can't be a mammal. I can't respect it or something. I mean, it's not necessarily.
And it's not true because I don't necessarily like long songs, but I do like songs.
Horizons.
Right. Yeah. And I do like songs that go through a lot of changes now. That's kind of what I've been listening to, and I think Can Utility and the Coastliners, only being 5 minutes, is one of my favorite Genesis songs because it's able to go through so many changes and so many different styles and feelings in such a short time. Meanwhile, a song like Dancing with the Moonlit Night, while I do like, it's 8 minutes long, I mean, that does go through changes. No, I think actually what a better example is? I mean, Dancing with the Moonlit Night's kind of an example, but Watcher of the Skies. 7 minutes, but it's pretty much the same tone the whole time. The same creature shape, this plant soil, and then it's like, it's the same. It's like a core. That's like an abacab structure. It's just really long and drawn out. If you think about it, I mean, Watcher of the Skies is like a typical kind of song. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's obviously catered with a lot of ugliness and beauty at the same time. But I like Can Utility and the Coastliners more than Watcher of the Skies. I mean, I like Watcher of the Skies, but it's not about the song length in itself. But I think in this effort to sort of familiarize myself with new material, I feel like I look for that sort of thing. I look for that ambition up front. And then I see a band classified as progressive rock, and then I see songs that are 4 minutes. I say, well, are they just progressive rock because they include like a saxophone or something? Is that why they're calling them progressive rock? And then you get progressive yodeling, which, it's just progressive rock because they have a 20-minute song, and then the first side has some yodeling on it. And it's all instrumental.
I don't think they actually called it progressive yodeling.
You called it that, though, and I like that term.
But that was just one.
What was that? Focus was the name of that band, I think.
Was it Focus? Where were they from again? It was
Netherlands.
The Netherlands. Oh.
Which is funny because I would think
progressive yodeling.
I would think that Van der Graaf Generator would actually be from the Netherlands, considering Van der Graaf. But then again, Van der Graaf Generator is actually like an instrument.
Wait, where are they from?
England.
From England?
Yeah.
Okay.
I need to listen to more of their stuff.
I only listened to that one H to the he to the.
H to the he. Apparently, it's H to the helium. Anyway.
Oh well, I only listened to that once. But anyways,
it's a horrible name for an album.
What a digression.
Anyway. But we could compare that to this because it's
going. But going back to this, I don't think it's about the song. Like it's not. But I think this is the crucial thing about short and long works in any kind of medium. It's the smaller amount of space you have to fill.
Yeah.
The more conclusively you can look at that, you can go, I can see that. It's like if you draw a huge letter I, you have to look at that and you have to go, alright, that's a letter I, and then you go over there, and that's an S, but if you just see it right there in front of you, you go, there's a letter I can see that. And it's kind of similar. The less things you have to comprehend, the more you can just immediately digest that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And I think that it's sort of measure of conclusion. And for a longer work, you need to have more support.
That means it's harder to have a good conclusion because then you have all this other, you have to actually fill that time.
Right, you have to bring back that's right, this thing. I remember now.
It's very hard to do, and that's why when I see that people do it, I have a lot of respect for them. I'm always curious to see what they do.
No, I think it really is one of the most impressive things to listen to a really good.
But there are bad ones. I mean, I don't like.
This isn't bad even, but it just I don't think it has enough support in it to me anyway.
It doesn't. Okay. What about? All right. This is kind of interesting because I superficially feel this way about this, and I want you to prove that I'm wrong. 9 Feet Underground. That's what it's called, right?
Mm-hmm.
That goes through a lot of changes, but it's a different kind of going through a lot of changes. It stays at the exact same level the whole time.
Pretty much, and it's very repetitive. It's very repetitive in a lot of ways.
It's very soothing. It doesn't go through that. It's not that same kind of. I guess that's the difference between not caravan scene, but the Canterbury scene. Is it's not about that symphonic sort of thing that I like in progressive rock. It's the more like we're gonna play jazz, kind of. What?
I actually like that album more than this one.
I like that album, but
with different purposes.
But I think that I probably would end up liking this one more.
Of course.
I mean, why do you think I like this album?
Jumping around and going around, singing, but cynicism.
It's very cynical. It's very.
Well, it's this kind of frustration with with trying to communicate something, and it's very long and it's very unyielding, and I think you like that degree of just stubbornness. I think.
Right.
And that degree of just desire to be a certain way superficially, yet kind of fail, yet kind of succeed.
Yes, I do. I do like that a lot. And in fact, I like I said, I really like imitation in some ways. And I'm not Jethro Tull. This is still first wave.
That's the
rock.
thing. That's the thing about Aqualung is I felt like they really owned that album. It was very. I could see what Anderson's point was. It was conveyed so succinctly. I
have an idea of a comparison. Would you say that Aqualung is a lot more like Kansas and this is a lot more like Song for America?
Oh, Kansas is the first album.
Yes, 1974. Sorry, I should say.
Yes, actually.
Because because I feel like the Kansas's first album was more true to itself, but it brought in prog elements. While Song for America was like, okay, now that we can do this, let's just really go full on prog, and it was kind of clumsy and didn't really move around as much as we wanted to.
Well, like I kind of mentioned to you earlier, what comes to mind to me first?
Sorry.
What came to mind to me first actually was Selling England and The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway.
That's also probably decent. Although part of me would want to shift it more down to Nursery Crime and Foxtrot, but then that's kind of a bias coming from me, of course. But
I mean, if you're going to consider like Foxtrot as this kind of really organized, great thing, but
the reason I say that,
and I'm not trying to say the benefit with the foxtrot by any means, but I mean, but the
maybe it is. I don't know.
No, it's not. But the thing with Aqualung is that it, and this kind of goes with Anderson in general, is it has this. I'm going to start talking and complaining about this thing, and then I'm done complaining about it. Then I'm going to move on to a new topic, and I'm going to continue that.
Right.
Because a brick is kind of like one big long
It's a
topic.
concept.
Yeah, and but the
You
thing
can
is,
even call it a concept. It's more of a
Aqualung
concept
is all
song.
related. It's all related. It's all strung throughout.
It's more of like
Aqualung is. It's a lot like that. It's kind of selling you kind of like this
overarching
is it.
theme
Yeah,
versus
overarching theme with
a rock opera.
Sort of, but the thing is with the Lamb and with this to some extent, and it gets so muddled in the middle, and it has this really great ideas of what it wants to be, but it's just so long.
And much like the Lamb, I mean, if you're gonna let's just equate it in turn, even if the length is doubled, let's just kind of sprawl it down. First side is really good. Second side, not so good, especially the first half of the second side.
But then maybe it concludes pretty.
It concludes
alright.
pretty. The Lamb concludes really strongly, but the problem is that third part is so hard to get through. That Lamia, that Willy Light Lily, that's just a lot of mucking around. I mean, mucking around is okay, but that's the part of the Lamb that's the hardest for me to get through, and it always has been. And then once you get to the Slipperman, it sort of descends kind of interestingly down.
Yeah.
Maybe not perfectly, but the first side I still think is superior, and I think that the first side for this one was also superior.
I agree. I like the end of the first.
Yeah, the end of the first side was really strong.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I feel like with your perspective, you have a different perspective because you got to know like what Tull really is fundamentally. I think that more so than I am. Well, I only know the part that prog fans grab onto and throw in my face.
It's like when you were doing when you were in your synth pop phase and you listened to Genesis '83.
Exactly.
And then you
just
said that this was the greatest Genesis album, and then you just listened to Selling England and you said this is all alien to me. But
well,
Genesis
the order was switched, but but still,
yeah.
But that's true. No, but that is very similar, I think. So you're arguing that the original like the first, what was it, 4 albums or 3? I think they had a '68 album.
Oh yeah, so they had the first blues album. What was that one?
68
something or stand or no?
All I remember is it looked like there were some campers on the cover.
Yeah, gosh, what's the name of it? I don't remember.
I don't know.
And then there was
Stand Up with the dwarves on it.
Unless I'm confusing those two. No, it's Stand Up, isn't it? That one I liked a lot. Did you know that one actually won an award for its cover art because when you open it up, the figures would stand up.
It's a pop-up book.
It's a pop-up book.
So and that's the is that where he brought in the flute in? Was that album?
Yeah. So the original guitars. Yeah, I guess it was the original guitars broke up with them after the first album because Anderson wanted to bring in the flute stuff, right?
Right, and I respect him for that stuff. I mean, his medieval mindset is really cool.
I thought Stand Up was really neat texturally. I don't think it was very cohesive, maybe, but it had a good, interesting texture to it here and there, and they were really trying a lot of neat things, I thought. And I hear a lot of people say very similar comments.
Yeah.
But
only Solitaire loved it. From what I saw.
I'm not surprised. Yeah, you should listen to that though. Benefit, of course, is everyone would undeniably agree. It's very much a transition. It's like the prequel to Aqualung, but I didn't.
Right, they haven't quite gone to the prog.
I thought it had really some strong songs here and there. I don't know if the whole album was. Maybe I just need to listen to it more. Maybe it goes for all of these, but I thought that Benefit was pretty competent as an attempt. It wasn't maybe trying to do the same thing, but it brought up. It was in that way that Trick of the Tail isn't really connected throughout all the songs really, but all the things in themselves are kind of strong maybe for the most part.
Right, it's balanced.
I mean, of course, I think this is it was way inferior to Trick of the Tail.
Right.
But still, I think it was good. It was very competent, and I don't know when I listen to all that and Aqualung, of course, and then I come to this, I think I don't know.
They went too far, maybe.
I don't know. It's not even too far. It's just Anderson trying to do something that I don't think he's very good at.
He's not fit. So it's not even a matter of you think it's like bad for him. It's you just think that he's just not good at doing this. It's not really what he's good at doing.
Well, yeah, he's not as good at doing this. I think he makes a stronger argument when he tries to say something, when he's rushed to say it, just there. I think.
I mean, this is not.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's a very different cult. Like, remember I was telling you the other day, Jethro Tull is very different culturally. It's a lot more angry. It's a lot more harsh. It's very close to being metal, but it's not quite there. It's saved from being metal for a variety of things.
And I want to mention that also. Actually, that brings me to another thing I want to say, and that with the whole metal thing. I mean, that when we look at the structure of a lot of their songs, it's very. I'm gonna repeat this chord.
Like no.
Yeah. Then you say all these things over a pretty, catchy or, structurally repetitive kind of riff and all that. But it's not the same way. I feel really. I feel like I can't express the right words to elaborate the differences here, but when you listen to a Yes song or a Genesis song or a Gentle Giant song, they have this idea of we are starting now, and then we're going to go through this journey, and then we're going to end now.
And we're going to do all these like really cool time signatures and call responses. And we're gonna have this. We have this big thing in mind.
It's a talking thing. It talks like, oh, I'm gonna say it. This instrument will say one thing. Oh, this instrument will say another. But
you're right.
But the thing is with Jethro Tull is it's kind of like we are gonna say it's like a certain. It's more of layering. It's constant layering.
It is layering, and
I mean that's fine. Like Black Sabbath does that too. I think. From what I've listened to them, and that's fine. It's its own purpose. But when you try to extend that to a longer song, it's because here's the problem. Here's the problem. It's not so much the matter of length. It's the ability for changes. Because when you end your song, you can just start with a new riff, a new kind of structure, right? A new layering, right?
Right.
Go from one cake to another cake. That's fine. Yeah. But if you're trying to transition between cakes, that's just really weird.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Thick as a Brick didn't really. The thing is, I don't think it really stands out. A lot of the things, the melodies and the just, I don't know, everything about it just doesn't jump out at me as much as Aqualung did. That's
fair.
And
that's really fair.
Maybe I should just be more patient with it, but that's just my impression, is that it just doesn't work. Thick as a Brick doesn't work as well for Anderson's